The cameras were rolling, the smiles were locked in, and nobody in that studio was ready for what was about to happen. Before we dive into the video, please like and subscribe and comment. Now let's get back to the video. What happens when one of Hollywood's biggest stars walks into what he thinks is a friendly interview, only to get hit with a sudden setup that exposes the nastiest side of daytime TV? You're about to hear about one of the most explosive talk show clashes, where Tom Cruise's famous calm started to crack under non-stop pressure. That morning, the atmosphere inside the View studio felt off from the start, like the room was holding its breath. Tom Cruise showed up to promote his latest mission, Impossible Film, expecting the usual easy questions about stunts, training, and behind-the-scenes stories. Instead, he walked into something else entirely, and it didn't take long to feel it. As Cruise sat down in the guest chair, he flashed that familiar movie star smile at the audience, trying to keep it light. But Joy Behar leaned forward with a smirk that looked less like welcome and more like wait for it. Whoopi Goldberg, Sarah Haynes, and Sunny Hostin weren't their normal chatty selves either, staying oddly quiet like they already knew the script that was coming. "Tom, welcome back to The View," Whoopi started, warm on the surface, trying to keep the show looking polished. "We're excited to have you here and talk about the new film," she added, aiming for safe territory. "Thank you for having me," Cruise replied, upbeat and professional, bringing that high-energy charm he's known for. "I'm honestly thrilled to be here, and this movie has been an incredible journey," he continued, sounding exactly like a guest who thinks this is going to be a fun segment. But then Joy cut in, and her tone sliced straight through the friendly vibe, like it never existed. "Tom, before we get to your little action movie, we need to talk about the elephant in the room," she said, pushing it into personal territory instantly. The studio went still, and you could feel it, because even the audience sensed the shift the moment those words landed. Cruise's smile flickered for a split second, but he pulled it back under control like a pro. "I'm here to talk about the film," he said carefully, keeping his voice calm but firm. "My personal beliefs are personal," he added, drawing a clear line without raising the temperature. Joy didn't back off, not even a little. She leaned back like she was pleased with herself, like the discomfort was the whole point. "Oh, come on, Tom," she pressed, acting like he owed her access to his private life just because he's famous. "You're a public figure. People pay to see you. Don't they have a right to know who they're supporting?" she pushed, turning it into a moral lecture. "I think people have a right to be entertained," Cruise answered, still controlled, but with a sharper edge creeping in. "That's what I've dedicated my career to, bringing stories to life that inspire and entertain audiences everywhere," he said, trying to steer it back to the movie without surrendering. Whoopi tried to step in fast, clearly sensing the tension spiking. "Joy, maybe we focus on the movie first, and then—" Whoopi began, attempting to save the segment, but Joy snapped her down immediately. "No, Whoopi!" Joy cut in, shutting the door like she owned the room. "This is exactly what we should be talking about," she insisted, doubling down as the studio energy tightened. Then she went for the jugular, accusing him of dodging real questions and claiming this wasn't going to be one of his carefully managed interviews. The camera caught Cruise's jaw tighten, subtle but obvious, and his hands gripped the chair arms like he was holding himself in place. "Joy, with all due respect, I've never hidden from anything," Cruise said, voice steady but colder now. "I've been open about my life, my work, and my dedication to what I do," he continued, finally asking the key question. "What exactly are you trying to get at here?" he demanded, because the attack wasn't even pretending to be about the film anymore. Joy's eyes lit up, like she'd been waiting for that moment. "What I'm getting at is you use your platform to promote ideas many people consider dangerous and irresponsible," she said, tossing the accusation out like it was settled fact. "And then you expect everyone to ignore it and just clap for your stunts and explosions," she added, belittling his work while painting him as a problem. "My stunts," Cruise repeated, and his voice rose just slightly, not yelling, but no longer playing nice. "Those stunts employ thousands of people," he fired back, making it real, making it bigger than ego. "They create jobs for stunt teams, special effects crews, camera operators, sound techs," he listed, like he was refusing to let her shrink his work into a punchline. "They generate massive revenue that supports other films, other stories, other careers," he continued, the pressure building with every sentence. Sarah Haynes shifted uncomfortably, looking like she wanted to vanish through the couch. Sunny Hostin looked like she wanted to speak too, but kept glancing between Joy and Tom, like she didn't want to get caught in the blast zone. Joy waved her hand like he was boring her. "Oh, please, spare me the economic speech," she said, dismissive and smug. "We both know that's not what this is about," she added, then went right back to the accusation. "This is about you using your fame to legitimize fringe beliefs that harm real people," Joy said. And that line made the audience murmur, because it wasn't a question, it was a charge. Cruise's publicist could be seen in the wings, tense, ready to step in because this was spiraling fast. "Fringe beliefs," Cruise repeated, and now his voice had danger in it, not loud, but loaded. "Joy, you're accusing me without a real basis," he said, drawing the line hard. "I've never forced my beliefs on anyone, and I've never used my platform to hurt people, see," he added, voice tightening with controlled anger. "In fact, I've tried to do the opposite, bring excitement and joy to millions," he said, still pushing back without losing his grip completely. But Joy leaned in again, enjoying every second of the squeeze. "That's the problem," she said, like she'd trapped him. "You have influence and you use it irresponsibly," she claimed, turning it into a public trial on live television. "People look up to you, young people, impressionable people," she continued, trying to corner him into admitting guilt. Whoopi attempted another rescue, desperate now. "Joy, I really think we should let him finish," Whoopi said, trying to put the brakes on. But Cruise's focus snapped fully onto Joy, and you could feel the moment shift. "I want to hear exactly what you're accusing me of," he said, eyes locked, voice firm, no more smiling. "Because it sounds like you brought me here under one pretense, then used it to ambush me with your agenda," he added, and the studio dropped into a heavy silence. Joy's smirk widened anyway. "My agenda," she scoffed, acting insulted while still poking the wound. "My agenda is the truth," she said, then twisted the blade with one more line. "Something you seem to have a complicated relationship with," Joy threw out, and you could practically hear the air leave the room. That was the moment Cruise's movie star mask started to crack, and the real person underneath began to show. "The truth," he repeated slowly, voice dropping into a quiet tone that somehow felt louder than shouting. "You want the truth," he continued, controlled but shaking with restrained fury. "The truth is, I've spent decades working brutal hours, getting hurt, recovering, pushing myself to limits most people never touch," he said, and every word sounded like it came from a place Joy wasn't prepared to deal with. "And you sit there comfortable, throwing accusations like they're toys," he added, staring her down as the tension climbed. Joy leaned forward again, sensing she'd hit a nerve and wanting to hit it twice. "I understand perfectly," she insisted, claiming moral high ground. "When you have a platform like yours, you have responsibility," Joy said, firm and loud. "And I think you failed at that responsibility," she added, like she was delivering a verdict. And right there, the other hosts looked trapped, the audience looked stunned, and it became clear this wasn't a normal interview anymore. It was turning into a fight that somebody wasn't going to walk away from clean. The tension kept rising, and the studio felt smaller with every word exchanged. Sunny Hostin shook her head slightly, clearly uncomfortable, while Sarah Haynes looked like she was debating whether to speak or disappear entirely. Joy wasn't done, not even close, and she pressed harder like she smelled blood. "You failed that responsibility," Joy repeated, leaning in again, her voice dripping with certainty. "You have power, Tom, and instead of using it carefully, you hide behind charm and box office numbers," she added, dismissing decades of work with a wave of her hand. Cruz straightened in his chair, his calm now stretched thin, like a wire about to snap. "You're talking about responsibility," he said slowly, every word measured, every syllable heavy. "So let's talk about responsibility," he continued, eyes locked on Joy, refusing to blink. "The responsibility of someone who claims to inform the public," he added, the implication landing hard. Joy shifted slightly, but she didn't retreat. "Don't turn this around on me," she snapped, trying to keep control of the exchange. "I'm not the one using fame to spread ideas that professionals warn against," she fired back. Cruz leaned forward, closing the physical distance just enough to change the energy completely. "You keep saying professionals," he said, voice low and sharp. "Which professionals, Joy?" he asked, pressing her directly. "And when did you decide you were qualified to judge what people are allowed to think?" he continued, the studio frozen in silence. Joy scoffed, but it sounded forced now. "I don't need your permission to ask questions," she shot back. "And I don't need your approval to hold you accountable," she added louder this time. "Accountable for what?" Cruz snapped, his voice rising for the first time, the restraint finally cracking. "For working," he continued. "For building a career that employs thousands," he added, counting it out like evidence. "For refusing to repeat talking points just to make people comfortable," he said, the frustration boiling over. Whoopi leaned forward, hands raised, trying again to calm things down. "Let's all take a breath," she pleaded, glancing toward the producers. But Cruz didn't look away from Joy for a second. "No," he said firmly without shouting. "She wanted this conversation," he added, voice steady but intense. "She wanted to question my integrity on national television," he continued. "So let's finish it," he said, and the weight of that sentence landed hard. Joy crossed her arms, defensive now, her confidence starting to wobble. "You're deflecting," she accused, trying to regain footing. "I asked you a direct question," she said, raising her voice again. "And I'm giving you a direct answer," Cruz fired back instantly. "You accuse me of harm without evidence," he continued. "You reduce my life's work to sound bites," he said, eyes narrowing. "And then you pretend that's journalism," he added, the word hitting like a slap. The audience stirred, some leaning forward, others shaking their heads, everyone locked in. Sarah Haynes finally tried to jump in, her voice uncertain. "Tom, maybe you could explain some of the work you do off-screen," she offered, desperate to redirect. But Joy shot her a sharp look. "No," Joy snapped. "That's not what this is about," she insisted. "This is about influence," she repeated, clinging to her original attack. "And the danger of unchecked celebrity power," she added, raising her chin. Cruz let out a short laugh, but there was no humour in it at all. "Unchecked," he repeated. "I've been questioned, criticised and attacked for decades," he said, voice firm. "There's nothing unchecked about that," he added. "What you're doing right now," he continued, "is trying to frame disagreement as danger," and the room went silent again. Joy opened her mouth to interrupt, but Cruz kept going. "And that," he said, voice sharpening, "is far more dangerous than anything you've accused me of," he finished. The cameras captured Joy's expression shifting, irritation mixing with something else. "You don't get to lecture me," she snapped, her tone losing polish. "I've been doing this job longer than you've been jumping off buildings," she added, trying to land a jab. "Longer," Cruz replied instantly. "Better," he added without hesitation, and the audience gasped. That hit harder than any raised voice. Joy stiffened, clearly stunned by the bluntness. "You don't get to decide what's acceptable thought," Cruz continued, pressing forward. You don't get to decide what beliefs are allowed, he added, and you definitely don't get to ambush guests and call it truth, he finished. The studio felt like it was vibrating now, tension thick enough to choke on. Joy's face flushed, her composure slipping by the second. "How dare you question my integrity?" she snapped, voice tight. "I've earned my place here," she insisted. "So have I," Cruz shot back. "And I earned it by building something," he continued. "Not by tearing others down," he added, eyes never leaving hers. For the first time, Joy didn't have an immediate comeback. The silence stretched, uncomfortable and heavy. Even Whoopi looked stunned, glancing between them like she couldn't believe how far this had gone. And everyone watching could tell one thing for sure. This wasn't over yet, not even close, and the next moment was going to change everything. The silence finally broke, but not in Joy's favour, and the shift was impossible to miss. Joy straightened in her seat, trying to reclaim authority, but her voice lacked the confidence it had just minutes earlier. "You don't get to rewrite the rules because you're angry," she snapped, attempting to sound composed. "I'm asking questions the public deserves answers to," she insisted, doubling down, even as the room turned against her. Cruz exhaled slowly, shaking his head like someone realizing the conversation had reached its breaking point. "No," he said calmly, and that calm was more unsettling than shouting. "You're asking questions you already decided the answers to," he continued, voice steady but firm. "That's not curiosity," he added. "That's a setup." And the word hit harder than any insult. Joy laughed nervously, a sharp sound that didn't convince anyone. "You're twisting this," she said quickly, trying to regain momentum. "You're doing exactly what powerful people always do when they're challenged," she accused. "And what's that?" Cruz asked, his tone cold and direct. "Playing the victim," Joy shot back, pointing at him. The audience reacted instantly, a mix of gasps and murmurs rippling through the studio. Cruz leaned back slightly, then forward again, his patience clearly gone. "Playing the victim," he repeated slowly. "I walked in here expecting a conversation about a film," he said. "I didn't come here to attack anyone," he continued. "I didn't come here to interrogate you about your beliefs," he added. "You brought me here and turned this into something else," he said, eyes locked on hers. "That's not me playing anything," he finished. Joy's jaw tightened, and she tried one last time to reframe it. "This is accountability," she insisted again, clinging to the word like a lifeline. "And accountability requires tough conversations," she added. "Tough conversations require honesty," Cruz shot back instantly. "And honesty requires facts," he continued. "You haven't brought facts," he said. "You've brought assumptions," he added. "And you've wrapped them in judgment," he finished, the audience hanging on every word. Sunny Hostin glanced toward Whoopi, clearly uneasy, while Sarah Haynes clasped her hands together, saying nothing. Joy leaned forward again, desperate to regain ground. "You can't deny the influence you have," she said sharply. "And with influence comes responsibility," she repeated, like a mantra. "I don't deny influence," Cruz replied. "I deny your right to police it," he added. "I deny your claim that disagreement equals harm," he continued. "And I deny the idea that you get to decide which beliefs are acceptable." He finished. Joy shook her head, visibly rattled now. "You're missing the point," she said, voice strained. "No," Cruz replied, cutting her off. "I'm hitting the point," he continued. "And the point is this," he added, pausing just long enough to make everyone lean in. "You're not interested in dialogue," he said. "You're interested in dominance," he added. "You're interested in cornering people and watching them squirm," he continued. "And when someone doesn't," he finished, "you call it dangerous." And the studio froze. Joy opened her mouth, then closed it again, clearly searching for a response. Whoopi finally tried to step in, her voice careful and strained. "Let's take a pause," she suggested. "I think emotions are running high," she added. But Cruz shook his head slightly, not aggressive, just resolved. "This is exactly the moment people need to see," he said calmly. "This is what happens When questions stop being questions, he continued, and start being weapons, he added. Joy stood up again, clearly frustrated. I'm not going to sit here and be lectured, she snapped. Then stop lecturing, Cruz replied immediately. You invited me, he continued. You set the tone, he added, and now you don't like where it went, he finished. The audience was completely silent now, every eye locked on the confrontation. Joy pointed a finger toward him, her voice sharp but unsteady. You think you're above scrutiny, she accused. No, Cruz said firmly. I think scrutiny should be fair, he added. I think it should be informed, he continued. And I think it shouldn't be disguised as an ambush, he finished. That word landed hard, and Joy flinched. You knew what you were doing, Cruz pressed on. You knew exactly where this was going, he added. And you did it anyway, he continued. That's not accountability, he said. That's theatre, he finished, and the irony hung heavy in the air. Joy looked around, searching for support, but none came. Sonny Hostin stared at the table. Sarah Haynes avoided eye contact. Whoopi rubbed her temples, visibly stressed. For the first time, Joy Behar looked truly alone on her own set. You're done, Joy snapped weakly. No, Cruz replied, standing his ground without standing up. I'm finished, he corrected. There's a difference, he added, and that distinction cut deep. The room stayed silent as his words settled, heavy and unavoidable, and everyone watching knew one thing with absolute certainty. Whatever was supposed to happen next, the show had already lost control, and the fallout was going to be impossible to ignore.